Samir sat on the old wooden bench near the park gate. His clothes were torn. His beard was messy. His eyes were tired. Children playing nearby often looked at him with fear. Some people crossed the road just to avoid walking near him. Others made jokes. "There's that drunk again," one man laughed, tossing a coin near Samir's feet. Samir didn't look up. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He just stayed silent. Every day, from morning till sunset, Samir sat on that same bench. No one knew where he came from. No one cared. To the world, he was just another street bum. But Samir's eyes told a different story, if anyone had ever looked closely. One winter evening, a little boy fell from his bicycle nearby. He scraped his knee and started crying. People walked past him. No one stopped. But Samir did. Slowly, he stood up, walked to the child, and tore a piece of cloth from his own shirt. Gently, he tied it around the boy's wound. "Don't cry," he said softly. "It'll be okay." The boy looked up at him, confused but calm. Before the boy's mother could even notice, Samir had already gone back to his bench. He didn't wait for thanks. He never did. Another time, a stray dog limped into the park, its leg bleeding. Samir whistled softly. The dog came near. From his pocket, Samir took out a piece of stale bread he had saved. He placed it in front of the dog, and then slowly tied a cloth around its leg. He whispered something to the animal. The dog stayed near him for days after that. No one saw it happen, but Samir didn't help for attention. He helped because he remembered how it felt to be forgotten. Samir wasn't always this way. Long ago, he had a house, a job, a family. But life had changed everything. He had lost something so important that the pain turned into silence. The silence turned into loneliness, and the loneliness became his only friend. Now, only the wind spoke to him. One rainy night, a rich man parked his car near the bench. He stepped out, drunk and loud, laughing with friends. He saw Samir and said loudly, "Look at this loser. Samir, right? You used to work at that company, huh? Now you beg for coins." Samir looked at him, but said nothing. The man smirked. "I heard you lost your daughter. Maybe you lost your mind too." His friends laughed. Samir's hands slowly tightened, but he didn't move. Instead, he looked up at the sky, as if waiting for it to speak. The man cursed and walked away. Samir returned to his bench and pulled out a small folded photo from his pocket. It was old, faded, torn from one side. In the photo, a little girl, maybe 6 years old, smiling in a blue dress. Samir looked at it for a long time, eyes full of memories. He placed the photo close to his chest and closed his eyes. That was all he had left now. A photo, a memory, and pain that never left. People thought Samir was broken, but he wasn't. He was waiting. For something. For someone. For the truth. One morning, as Samir sat in his usual place, an old phone hidden inside his bag began to ring. Samir froze. That phone hadn't rung in years. He looked around. The street was quiet. The sun was just rising. The phone rang again. His hand shook as he pulled it out. The screen was cracked. The battery low. Unknown number. He stared at it. Then slowly he answered. "Hello." A pause. Then a voice. Deep and familiar. "Samir, it's time." Samir's eyes widened. The voice continued. "They found her. She's alive." The call ended. Samir sat still for a few seconds, heart pounding. He looked at the photo again. Then, for the first time in years, he stood up. He left the bench behind and started walking. Samir walked without stopping. His old shoes tore more with every step. His breath was heavy, but his heart beat louder than ever. The voice on the phone had shaken something deep inside him. After years of silence, someone had said the words he had waited to hear. They found her. She's alive. His daughter, Zoya. the reason he had become the man on the bench. 9 years ago, Samir had a life like many others. He worked at an IT office. Not rich, but happy. He had a wife who smiled often, a small home with simple dreams, and a daughter who lit up his world. Zoya was everything to him. She used to run to him every evening, shouting, "Papa's home." They played, laughed, sang songs. But life doesn't always stay kind. One rainy evening, Samir returned home late from work. The door was open. The lights were off. The silence was strange. He rushed inside, calling for Zoya. She wasn't there. His wife sat on the floor, crying, her face bruised. She couldn't speak clearly. "All I did was open the door," she said. "I thought it was the delivery boy." Then she fainted. Zoya was gone. Taken. Police came. Reports were made. Posters were printed. Samir searched every street, every alley, every station. But no one helped. The police called it a kidnapping, then later said, "Maybe your wife was involved." Samir fought the case with everything he had. Sold his house. Left his job. Hired a lawyer. But then the system turned against him. Someone powerful was behind the case. Files went missing. Evidence got lost. Witnesses changed their words. Then one day, the police arrested Samir, saying he faked the kidnapping for money. He screamed, begged, cried, but they didn't care. No one believed a broken father. He was jailed for 6 months. When he came out, his wife had left the city. No job, no family. No home. Just a photo of Zoya in his pocket and a question in his heart. Why? Why would someone take a little girl? Why would someone destroy a father? Samir started investigating on his own. He followed clues, met shady people, found names and places that didn't match. And every time he got close to the truth, something bad happened. Once, he found a man who claimed to know about a secret adoption ring. Before he could talk, the man was killed in a road accident. Samir knew now, this was not a normal case. This was a cover-up. Someone had taken Zoya, and someone very powerful didn't want her to be found. Samir became dangerous to them, so they destroyed his image. They leaked photos of him drunk, though he never drank. They paid people to say he was mentally unstable. They made him a joke, a liar, a madman, and finally, they erased him from society. Samir gave up everything. He stopped talking, stopped trusting. He became invisible, but he never stopped watching. Every child he saw, he looked closely. Every news report he read fully. Every night, he whispered her name before sleeping. "Zoya, I'm coming." Now the phone call had brought back the fire. He remembered the voice. It belonged to his younger brother, Imran. Imran had disappeared years ago after joining a dangerous activist group. Everyone believed he was dead. But now, Imran was alive. And he had found Zoya. Samir reached the old factory building where Imran had told him to come. He walked slowly inside. A flashlight shone on his face. Then, a voice spoke from the dark. "You're late, bye." Samir's eyes filled with tears. It was really him. Older, rougher, but still his brother. They hugged silently. Imran pulled out a small folder. Inside were pictures, documents, maps. He pointed to one photo. It showed a building with a blue gate. "She's in there. They call it a child center, but it's something else." Samir's hands shook. He stared at the picture of a girl standing by the window. She was older now, but he knew those eyes. It was Zoya, alive. Somewhere, after all these years, Imran placed a hand on his shoulder. "They'll come after us, Samir. Once we go in, there's no turning back." Samir closed his eyes. He remembered her laugh, her voice, her tiny hand in his, and he whispered, "They took everything from me. Now I'll take back what's mine." Samir could not sleep that night. He sat on the floor of the old building, the folder still open in front of him. His daughter, Zoya, was alive. Just the thought made his heart beat faster, but also filled him with fear. What had she gone through? Was she safe? Did she still remember him? Imran, his younger brother, sat nearby, cleaning an old phone and checking maps. Imran had spent the last 6 years working in secret. He had joined a group that fought against human trafficking and illegal child homes. He had seen dark things. He had risked his life. And finally, he found something. A private shelter run by a powerful man. A place where children were kept for care, but behind closed doors, horrible things happened. That was where Zoya was. Samir listened quietly as Imran explained everything. This place is protected. Politicians support it. The police ignore it. It looks clean from outside, but inside, they treat kids like they're not human. Samir's hands became fists. Imran looked at him. We can't just walk in. We need proof. We need people to see the truth. Samir nodded slowly. He had waited 9 years. He could wait a little more, if it meant saving Zoya the right way. They started their mission the next morning. Samir changed his clothes for the first time in years. Imran gave him a cap, a phone, and a list of names. Their first stop was a small internet cafe in a nearby town. There they met Alia, a journalist who worked for a small online news blog. She didn't have a big office. She didn't have millions of followers. But she had something rare, a brave heart. When Imran showed her the photo of Zoya and the building, her face turned serious. If I help you, they might come for me too, she said. Samir looked at her calmly. They already came for my daughter. I have nothing left to lose. Alia paused, then nodded. Let's expose them. They made a plan. Imran would go inside the building, pretending to be a volunteer. Alia would record videos secretly. Samir would stay outside, but close, ready to step in if anything went wrong. 3 days later, Imran entered the building. The security guard didn't ask too many questions. The place looked normal. Children playing, nurses walking around. But behind the smiles were locked doors, cameras, fear in the children's eyes. Imran saw Zoya once. She was helping a younger child eat food. She looked thin, quiet, but calm. He didn't go near her, not yet. He took a photo from far, sent it to Samir. When Samir saw it, his hands trembled. It was her, his little girl, now almost grown. Alia uploaded a small video clip without showing Zoya's face. She exposed the building's dark past, stories from other missing children, connections to politicians. The video went viral. People started asking questions, but danger also came fast. That night, 2 men followed Alia's scooter. They tried to grab her bag. She escaped, but they stole her phone. Samir and Imran now knew what they were dealing with. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a war against people who had everything: money, power, and no shame. But Samir was not afraid anymore. He had already lost everything. Now he was ready to fight for it back. One evening, Samir stood near the gate of the shelter, dressed as a delivery man. He entered with a box of food, head down. Inside, he heard a familiar laugh. It was soft, light. Zoya's voice. His heart almost stopped. He turned, and there she was. Not a little girl anymore, but still his daughter. Still his Zoya. He couldn't speak. He couldn't run to her. He just watched from a distance, and a tear rolled down his cheek. He whispered to himself, I found you. Now I won't lose you again. But the real storm was coming. The man behind the shelter had seen the video, and now he wanted blood. Far away from the shelter, inside a big glass office on the 12th floor of a tall building, a man watched the viral video again and again. His name was Raghav Khanna. To the world, he was a successful businessman, a man who helped children, donated to hospitals, and smiled in every newspaper photo. But behind that smile was something darker. He owned the shelter where Zoya was kept, and he was the reason Samir had lost everything. Raghav looked at the photo of Samir on his screen. Old, dirty clothes, homeless, forgotten. He laughed. So, you came back from the dead. He picked up his phone and called someone. Find him. Finish it this time. Back at the shelter, Samir sat on the rooftop, watching the building silently. Imran joined him with fresh food. We need to move faster, Imran said. That video made some noise, but it also put a target on us. Samir nodded. Zoya is still in there. I don't care what happens to me, but she must come out safe. Imran placed a hand on Samir's shoulder. We'll get her out, but we'll also bring him down. That night, Alia called with news. I traced Raghav Khanna's company. He's connected to 4 other shelters like this. And Samir. She paused. He was the one who paid the police in Zoya's kidnapping case. I found bank transfers in an old officer's account. Samir closed his eyes. All these years, he had asked, why? Now he had the answer. Raghav had stolen Zoya, destroyed his family, and hid the truth with money and power. Samir didn't cry. He had no more tears, only rage. The next day, Samir and Imran met with an old friend, Vikram, who once worked as a private security officer. Vikram believed Samir was innocent back then, but had no power to help. Now, he offered them access to security cameras near the shelter. They watched live footage of the back gate, staff rooms, and corridors. Samir saw Zoya again, walking with other girls, quiet and calm. But suddenly, he noticed something strange. Every evening, 1 or 2 girls disappeared from the building and never returned. No one asked questions. No one reported them missing. Samir's chest felt heavy. They're not just holding them, he whispered. They're selling them. Imran's jaw tightened. We need solid proof, and we need it fast. Alia arranged a secret interview with a girl who had escaped from one of Raghav's other shelters. She was only 14. She told her story, face covered, voice shaking. She had been taken from her village, brought with lies, locked in a room, and told to behave or never see sunlight again. Some girls were sent away. I never saw them again, she said. Alia uploaded the interview. People were shocked. Social media exploded. But with attention came danger. The next morning, Alia's office was burned. She escaped in time, but her files were gone. Samir and Imran had to change their location. Raghav was moving fast, but so were they. Imran entered the shelter again, this time with a hidden camera inside his pen. He recorded everything, the locked rooms, the scared faces, the secret side entrance where cars came at night. He managed to get one short clip of Zoya speaking to another girl. She said, "My father used to sing that song when I was sad. I still remember it." Samir watched the video and smiled for the first time in years. She remembered, even after all the pain, even after all the silence. Samir knew the time had come. No more waiting, no more hiding. He would go inside. He would bring Zoya back, even if it cost him his life. At that moment, far away, Raghav received a photo. It was a camera screenshot. Samir, standing at the shelter gate in a delivery uniform. Raghav's smile faded. So, the father's not dead after all. He turned to his men. End this. Tonight. Morning came, but the air was heavy. Samir sat on the rooftop of an abandoned building across from the shelter. His hands were wrapped in bandages, and there was a cut near his eye. Last night had left its mark. The fire, the fight, the screams, all still fresh in his mind. But Zoya was safe. She was with Imran and Alia now, in a secret safe house far from the city. Samir had done what no one believed he could. He found his daughter. But the fight wasn't over. Now he had to show the world the truth. Inside the safe house, Zoya sat quietly. She hadn't spoken much since the rescue. She just held a photo in her hand, an old picture of her as a child, sitting on Samir's shoulders, both of them laughing. Imran made tea, and Alia kept checking her laptop. The video files were ready. Hidden camera footage, interview clips, audio recordings, and finally, Zoya's own words. The night before, Alia had gently asked her, "Zoya, if you're ready, we want to share your story. Your voice can help save other children." Zoya had paused, then nodded. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She just looked straight at the camera and said, "They told me my father left me, that he didn't want me. But he came. He fought. He remembered me when the world forgot. And now, I want the world to see what they really did to us." The video was uploaded the next day. Alia titled it, "The Girl Who Was Stolen, and the Father Who Never Gave Up." Within an hour, it went viral. People cried watching Zoya speak. Samir's old story resurfaced, the man wrongly accused, destroyed by the system, and thrown onto the streets. Now, the world saw what he truly was. A father, a fighter, a man who never stopped loving. News channels picked it up. Social media exploded. Hashtag Justice for Zoya. Hashtag Aristragav. Hashtag Samir the Hero. Soon, Raghav's name started trending too, but for the wrong reasons. People dug into his past. They found other shelters, other missing children. One by one, survivors came forward. Voices that were once silent now spoke loudly. But Raghav was not done. He still had money, still had connections, and he had one final plan. Late that evening, police cars arrived at the safe house. Samir stood in front, protecting Zoya. An officer stepped forward and said, "You're under arrest for trespassing and assault." Samir didn't move. He just asked one question. "Do you know who you're really working for?" The officer paused. Then Alia stepped forward, holding a printed file. "This is proof of payment from Raghav's company to your department's fund. If you take him now, this goes to every news channel in the country." There was silence. Then the officer sighed and walked away. The next day, a group of honest officers, along with a court order, raided Raghav's shelter. They found hidden rooms, unregistered children, fake adoption papers. The place was shut down. Raghav tried to escape the city, but was caught at the airport. He still smiled for the cameras. "These are lies," he said. "I've helped thousands of children." But this time, no one believed him. Not anymore. Samir and Zoya watched the news together. She rested her head on his shoulder. He gently held her hand. So many years were stolen from them, but this moment was theirs, and it was real. Later that night, Samir stood outside the shelter one last time. Rain began to fall. He looked at the broken building and whispered, "You took my child, my life, my name. But I still stood. I still found her. And I still believe in truth. You couldn't break me." A soft breeze blew through the small park where Samir sat on a wooden bench. Not long ago, this same bench was his home. Back then, people walked past him without a second glance. Some laughed. Some looked away in disgust. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody cared. But today, things were different. Today, people stopped to thank him. Some cried and held his hand. Some brought food or flowers. A little boy ran up and said, "You saved your daughter. You're a real-life hero." Samir smiled gently. He didn't feel like a hero. He still carried pain inside, scars from the years he lost, the nights he cried alone, the name he couldn't clear. But he had something now that he thought he had lost forever. Zoya. Zoya was slowly healing. She was still quiet, still sometimes stared into space. But she laughed now, softly, carefully, when Samir made silly faces or tried to cook. One evening, she sang the lullaby Samir used to sing when she was small. He closed his eyes and listened. That one moment felt like the entire world coming back to life. Imran and Aliyah stayed close. Imran had left everything to fight beside his brother. Now he started working with an NGO to help other lost children. Aliyah's small blog had grown into a full media team. She refused to join big news channels. "I want to tell real stories," she said, "not just trending ones." And her next project, The Children Who Were Forgotten, featuring voices like Zoya's. Raghav Khanna, the man who caused so much pain, was now in jail. More victims came forward every week. The system that once protected him was now cracking. And Samir, he was asked to speak at events, to share his story, to inspire others. He always began the same way. "I was called mad, dirty, a drunk, a loser, but all I ever was a father who loved his daughter." One day, Zoya stood in front of her school gate. Yes, she had gone back to school. Samir watched from far, nervous, holding a small lunchbox. Zoya looked back and smiled. "Stop worrying, Papa. I'll be okay." He nodded, trying not to cry. "Okay, but if anyone troubles you, just tell me. I'll come right away." She laughed, waved, and walked inside. Samir sat back on the bench outside, heart full. A new morning had begun, not just for Zoya, but for him too. Years later, a book sat in a bookstore window. Its title, The Man on the Bench, a story of love, loss, and the fight for truth. Written by Zoya Khan, dedicated to the man who never gave up on me, my father, Samir. In a small home nearby, Samir watered plants in his tiny garden. Zoya walked in with a letter in her hand. "Papa, the school invited you to speak on Father's Day." He looked at her, surprised. "Me? Why?" She smiled. "Because they want the children to know what a real hero looks like."